have guessed by the title of this video. This is my 1000th subscriber celebration. My 1000th subscriber celebration video. And so, to commemorate this momentous occasion, I asked you, my wonderful followers, to send in questions for me to answer. And let me start by saying you did not disappoint. I thank you for all that you sent in, and I am very much looking forward to this video. One thing that I will add is that in receiving so many questions, I've decided to make this a two-part process. I wanted to make sure that I answered each of the questions with due diligence and without worrying about any time constraints or feeling as though I needed to get a move on. So I took all of the questions I received, combed through them, mostly just to make sure that if there were any crossover questions, it wasn't like I was repeating myself. And then I turned them all face down in little snippets of question on pieces of paper, and I scrambled them. So even now, I have with me today a bowl filled with your questions, at least one half anyway. And so this will be the first part, and then I will release the second part, well, once I've recorded. But with all of that out of the way, and without further ado, let's get started with our first question. Our first question is, do you have any inspirations that led you to ASMR? Who first introduced you to this section on YouTube? So, I may have shared in one of my early videos, most notably my rosary video, that I was a church-going kid, and so I often found it to be a relaxing place, and also a place where I was certainly getting this tingly feeling, perhaps without knowing what in fact it was. And so it wasn't until my college years that I was looking for something to help me relax amidst assignments and papers and maintaining some semblance of a social life. And I would listen to some of these prayer videos on YouTube, and it just so happened that one of the recommended videos was an early gentle whispering video, Maria herself, and I suppose the rest is history from there. So, purely organic findings. No other influences other than a YouTube algorithm, I suppose. In fact, I think it was very early in its time that I felt as though I was part of something very pioneer, watching some of those. My viewing of ASMR goes back about 11, almost 12 years ago. So, I mean, it's up there with some of those early formal intentional ASMR videos. So, yeah. Our next question is, how has your life changed or been impacted since becoming an ASMR artist yourself? Have you learned more about yourself on this journey? I would say that being a viewer of ASMR is certainly one thing. To become a creator of it is something else entirely. I find that, I suppose, as a person, I tend to be a little bit more analytical on things, a little bit more objective. And so, this has been a really wonderful creative outlet for me. It's something that has given an opportunity to sort of explore, ideas around things, or, kind of make it up as you go. And that's been really neat and something that I can't say I've tapped into in recent times. So just to know that that part of me is not gone. It was just lying dormant. I think is a nice life lesson for sure. It's also helped me to try to balance time management in terms of making videos and keeping up with my other life work responsibilities. The next question is, what would you wish for yourself when you were little, and for yourself in the future? This question is interesting because it makes me think of almost like a what would you want to be when you grow up kind of question. Like the things that I would wish for as a kid. It's funny, I thought about being a race car driver at one point, and I have to give credit to my wife. It was some birthday in my late 20s that she gave me the opportunity to at least both ride in the passenger seat and drive a stock car on a racetrack. It was really cool to just have that experience, even though it wasn't necessarily something that I lived up to. But for myself and the future, I hope to find and maintain a state of peace. And another word for that, I think, is also quiet. And it actually wasn't until I reached this first 1,000 subscribers that I decided to re-up some of my logos. And so if you check out my channel now, you'll see that it actually has my channel name. But I've decided to stick with the slogan, find your quiet. Find your quiet. Find your quiet. Find your quiet. And I think the reason I chose that one was because I find that it is important for any of us to find the places, perhaps the people even, where we can find a centered sense of self. The quiet doesn't necessarily mean specifically just a quiet place, although it can certainly be that. It can also mean being at peace with yourself. Just knowing that you're okay, I guess, or that things will be okay. So, I've thought of that as an end tagline to my videos as well, to find your quiet. The next question is, what lessons are important to know for a young adult? What advice would you give to younger people? I really like this question. I think what what's an important lesson to, or what I hope a young person would resonate with, is to stay true to yourself, in the sense that if there's something that you are passionate about, something you enjoy, to guard that passion passionately. There are so many times where I may have heard about a person not just giving up, but being talked out of something that they enjoyed, or that brought them sort of a glow to themselves. But to never give that up. I think another piece would be kind of in line with that, to honor your weird. And what I mean by that is there is no weird that hasn't already been done before. At least as far as I think human history is concerned. The idea of taking ourselves too seriously, or that there is something so momentous that if there are parts of your personality that you think are needing to be snuffed out, kind of goes back to the passion thing. You'd only be hurting yourself in the process. So, it's my belief that in living true to yourself, that the people who are meant to be in your life will gravitate to you, and they will find you. So, hopefully the young people may heed those words. The next question is, favorite trigger? Well, I suppose you're listening to it. I'd say my favorite trigger is low pressure. Don't get me wrong, I love the ASMR community and all its creativity, and I even watch some of those videos. But if I'm really looking to have an ASMR experience, the kind that I feel is going to put me to sleep, it's usually the ones that are pretty low key. And I think about some of those videos that I used to watch. Gentle Whisperings, Mirror Finger Taps video. The Water Whispers Ilsa, when she created this video where she draws in sort of a meditative sand garden. thinking of is like low production. And I think in my own style, I think that's a lot of what I'm trying to emulate is the kind of ASMR that brought me to ASMR. So, soft speaking, whispering, certain sounds, but just a general tone of you're here to relax, and I hope that I can be that for you. So, that's my take. The next question is, when is your birthday? My birthday is March 2nd. Fun fact, I share a birthday with Dr. Seuss. The next question is, do your friends and family know you make ASMR videos? Currently, to date, the only person who is aware that I make ASMR content is my wife. Perhaps there will be a time when I may be more outspoken about it. But I also think that, much like many other things, ASMR isn't everyone's cup of tea. And so, to be forthcoming about, hey, I do this thing, and I guess I'd be curious about the reaction. Not that I would be, worried about any reactions like that or anything, but more in the sense of, I like what I'm doing, and I'd almost prefer that someone stumbled upon it and said, hey, by the way, I think I may have seen your chin on YouTube, or your teeth, I suppose. Was that you? But no, just my wife for now. The next question is, how do you recharge and take care of your mental health? So, in some previous videos, it may already be of some guess to many of you, but being in nature, whether it's the woods, or a lake, or a pond, being outdoors, I think, is just a wonderful way to connect and de-stress. I'd say particularly that it is often the time that I am most off my devices. I go pretty analog when I'm out there. A compass, things like that. Obviously, I might have my phone on me, but it's not my go-to in terms of the experience. It really is an intentional effort to take all that in. Next question is, do you watch your videos when they are released on the channel? Do you like them? Do you feel shame for them? Are you happy with them? Well, I can first and foremost say that I am happy with them. I do feel like despite my comment about, low production value, I would also say that I do still have, some thoughtfulness in terms of what I'm putting out there, and not just putting something out there for the sake of more content. So I'm trying to be a little bit critical there. No shame. No shame. Much like my response about the young adult question. I'm doing this because it's something that I want to do. And I hope that it is something that other people enjoy what I'm giving, much as I've enjoyed or had the opportunity to enjoy so much of what so many other artists have given me. So consider it more of a pay it forward kind of thing. I would say I spend enough time in editing that it feels like I've already watched it. So to watch a final product once it's on the channel, I'd probably say not as much. I'm not opposed. Like if someone said, hey, you want to sit down and watch one of your videos, I'd say, sure, I guess, that's fine. But I'd probably want to see what else is out there from other creators, if I'm honest. Let's see what the next one is. Will we ever get to know your name? Perhaps one day. I think name and face will be two that happen together. And when they do, which I think that they might, that's when it would happen. I would probably make a more formal introduction. But for now, I will remain the Northwoods Whispers solely. I like this. What is your least favorite trigger to listen to? And do it. So, I'd probably say one of my least favorite is when there's aggressive sounds in the ear. I'm inclined to think I have auditory sensitivity to begin with, and so I think the example that I'm thinking of is blowing into the microphone and just that sound. Now I have a wind cover on mine just to help absorb a lot of even my own breath, so you're getting more vocal tones as opposed to but for the sake of the question, either you're welcome or I'm sorry, but here goes. someone who wanted to make their own ASMR content, my advice would be, first of all, do it. If it's something that's been swirling around in your mind, much like I know it has in mine, do it. If I were to do a behind the scenes, you would see how relatively low stakes it is. I don't, aside from my microphone, which is a Blue Yeti, because sound quality was the most important thing to me. Everything else is pretty plain. I don't have, a fancy Canon camera. It's, some rinky-dink 4K that I had to buy a separate SD card for because the first one crashed in like a day or two. So yeah, it's possible, and it doesn't take a whole lot to get started. Heck, even most phones nowadays have a camera, so you could even record on that, and I'm sure the audio quality would be fantastic. Just about finding your voice in all of it, as I feel like in many ways I'm still searching for mine. So, next question. I saw how you prepared bread. I did. Do you like to cook? Are there any favorite dishes that you are ready to eat all the time? Will there be more cooking videos on the channel? I do enjoy cooking. My wife and I, we cook quite often, actually. I'd say to date, I've got a couple of, pardon my back popping there, goodness. I've got a couple. I'd like to think I make a pretty mean chili. And on top of that, I make fresh sourdough. So sourdough bread specifically. And so I keep a starter, and I've been doing sourdough bread for, I think I'm coming up on 7 or 8 years now doing sourdough bread. So chili in a bread bowl would be one. I think that's kind of unique. Another go-to, I think, is a paprika chicken. Really nice as a one pot meal. Just so many wonderful flavors in a Dutch oven pot. It's a really good recipe, that one. I really like coming back to that one, and I think the leftovers are even better than the first time I have it. As far as making more videos, cooking videos, I'm not opposed. Certainly not opposed. I will say the recording of it is a little bit different. Like where I am right now, I can just sit and do the video. I feel like finding that place where I'm going to be for the duration of most of the video. I feel like moving the camera, recording the next bit, making sure that I get it, and then kind of compiling everything together. It was a lot more effort. And yeah, I comes to me and my cooking, like I think I can get a little bit like too specific. So like wanting to make sure that everything's coming together and working together. So to record on top of that might be a little much, but who knows? Maybe this question will stir something in me to think about it a little more. So thank you. What is a moment in your life that significantly shaped who you are today? I would say it was after I graduated from college. I spent a year in a volunteer service that moved me out of state, out of where I grew up, and into really a completely unfamiliar area for me. And it's also how I ended up meeting my wife. She wasn't in the volunteer program per se, but it was a chance meeting while I was in the program. And so that has changed my life trajectory forever. And I'm grateful for it. Next question is, do you watch ASMR yourself? That is a resounding yes. My wife says I could probably fall asleep on my own, and that I'm just choosing not to. And I think that there is some part of that is probably true. But there are just so many wonderful creators, and so many talented creators that this community continues to amaze me. And it's really quite interesting to see it all play out. The next question is, what are your favorite genres of music, movies, and books? Favorite genres, I'm definitely, for music, I run the gamut, my goodness. I don't think there's anything that I would say no to, but I would definitely say I gravitate towards hard rock music, and I would also gravitate towards folk music, and so I feel like between those two, depending on the circumstances, I can probably find myself listening to one or the other. The wild card is I'm also a big Broadway fan, so I'm also not opposed to putting on a shuffle mix of Broadway tunes. Movies and books. Movies, I'd say two things. First are sci-fi, or I guess like the comic book type movies, or my personal favorite, which are single setting movies. A movie that comes to mind, and one that I've watched time and time again, is 12 Angry Men, based on the book. And so, just to see people and their personalities happen for an hour and a half, 2 hours, is a very interesting experience to me, snippet of someone's personality in that place, and that's it, and it's sort of fixed, but their personality can be a little bit different as it goes on. And books, I would say this is a newer trend. I've been a non-fiction person for a long time, and I'm more recently trying to get back into fiction. I think this is part of my creative renaissance, I'll call it. Trying to explore or re-explore my imaginative side. So that's a work in progress. Next question. Do you have any quotes, phrases, or personal insights that help you get through some problems or difficult stages of life, and that help motivate you not to give up and motivate you to overcome difficulties? Well, the first quote that comes to mind, and one that I try to live by, is Shakespeare's love all, trust a few, and do wrong to none. I think that's a pretty simple way to organize how to live one's life in a polite, caring, respectful way. I would also say the other one quote that I grew up with and that I say stays with me is keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. And the reason I like that one is because you get to define the prize. Sure, sometimes the prize is really clear, really concrete. Maybe the prize is an exam or winning an athletic event. But as I've, gotten older and started to reflect on this idea of keep your eye on the prize, defining the prize. What is the prize? How do I define certain things in life? Define success, define fulfillment, define meaning. And in those definitions, what is the prize? So, I think it's been one that has allowed for some deep-rooted self-reflection, I say. Yeah. Next question. Who's your favorite ASMR creator? How did you know you wanted to do ASMR? Gosh, to pick a favorite. I suppose instead I might rattle off a few of the ones that I know I've either found myself continuing to go back to, or that just stand out in my mind at the present moment. Gentle Whispering, The Water Whispers, Ilsa, ASMR Requests, Laura Lamericks, Whispering in Blue. I don't know about my listeners, but that one feels a little bit off the beaten path. she was an interesting one, and I don't know if she ever shared her name. The only fake name, or at least I thought it was a fake name, was Bobby Ross, but that felt too close to Bob Ross. But she didn't have video, and so I thought that that was interesting. It was only focused on the audio, and her audios were really, I'd say, mesmerizing. I found her voice to be quite captivating, and if you haven't heard them, check out her Inspanin videos, or her cranial ones, and they're not cranial nerve exam. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get inside your brain, and your scalp is going to dissolve, and doing that with your eyes closed and just sort of experiencing that. I thought that was really interesting. But how did I know that I wanted to do ASMR? I think it's always been on the brain. I think, or at least I felt anyway, that my life, where I was at in certain stages, wasn't really conducive to the kinds of environments that I think ASMR would be really productive. Like, I used to live in, part of my life I lived in New York City, and that's loud, and there's sirens and neighbors, upstairs, downstairs. You can't get away from it. So, aside from soundproofing the whole darn room, it just didn't seem like the time. And then, where I am now, aside from, I suppose, the occasional, person wanting to do a burnout, especially this late at night, like someone wanting to do a burnout on the road, or a motorcyclist, wants to go fast. Other than that, it's super quiet. So, which just makes me think about getting back into nature and recording some nature videos for you guys. The next question is, what do you do for a living? I am a therapist, a mental health therapist specifically. The official title, I suppose, is a licensed clinical social worker, and that enables me to be a professional in that capacity and sit down with people and help them through things. And I think that there is definitely some attachment there between what I do professionally and being here on camera now, trying to have a sort of reach that helps people to relax and find quiet, find peace, rest, just a general reassurance and some kind of good. Have you ever thought of showing your face in the future? I have. Similar to the name question. I definitely have. Maybe one day. There are times where I've thought about it, even coming up to the 1,000 subscribers. I'm a little over 6 months into this channel, so it's also possible that in a year's time I might feel differently and appear with my whole face. When was the first time you experienced ASMR? I will say, without knowing its title, I definitely experienced ASMR as a kid. Earliest memory, and I still think about this, is going to sleep. My mom would do this, and I'm sure some of you may have even heard of this, whether from someone you know or a family member or even another ASM artist. But it was X marks the spot with a dot, 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 and a dash, dash, dash. Squiggle up, squiggle down, squiggle all the way around with a kiss and a squeeze and a cool ocean breeze and a egg all over your head. And I remember, and gosh, when I think about it now, tingles. When I think about it, my specific reaction happens somewhere right where sort of like hard part of the skull ends and the sort of fleshy stuff begins. It just goes down. And I just remember that being like, that's so cool. And it wasn't until I started talking about ASMR with other people that they were like, what are you talking about? So yeah. What do you consider to be your greatest strength and your greatest weakness? I'd probably say my greatest strength, and this question is challenging for me because only in the sense that I'm not one to like talk about myself in this like boastful kind of way. But I do think that I have a good empathetic capacity. I think I have the ability to understand a person's perspective, worldview, position, and find myself just understanding where they might be coming from. That doesn't necessarily mean agree, but just that I can know what it is that they're feeling and can be with them in that moment. As for greatest weakness, I would definitely say this is more in the personal over the professional, but sometimes, depending on the environment, and I think about this more in like a social sense of certain self-awareness, in the sense that like there might be times where I'm talking like a lot and like it's almost like I don't have an off switch, or I don't know like how to pivot. Again, so different from a professional capacity where I know like my role and to listen and to observe and to embrace those strengths of empathy, to help people. But yeah, personally, I'd say that's the one that I might struggle with. This question is, have you ever seen a horror movie that was a one and done or scared you. I will say this. I am not a horror person at all. I think it started when I was a kid. I had very vivid dreams, and these dreams were, unpredicated on anything that I'd already seen. They were just made up, fabricated of my own mind, without any advance watching of stuff. And so that sort of freaked me out. And so the idea that there is an entire genre about it is kind of like a big no thanks to me. I will say I am trying to do better, to expand my horizons. And so there have been a couple of horror TV shows that I've been watching. Just thinking off the top of my head. I can't think of the director, although I know it's the same person. But he did Bly Manor and Midnight Mass. And I found those to be really interesting as far as horror stuff goes. But most horror, if I have watched it, is already a one and done. Like, I don't see myself going back again, double dipping into that realm. If I'm completely honest, if I know something is going to be horror, chances are I'm watching the film through like filtered fingers. Like I'm like literally covering. So next question is, have you ever had a mentor or someone who deeply influenced your life? Yes, I've had many a mentor actually. Some familial and some non. Growing up, particularly, I'd say it was coaches. Spent a lot of time in sports, and so it was also during like that adolescent period where you don't really want to like listen to your parents as keenly, even though the stuff that they're saying might be sound and completely appropriate. But to hear it from a third party is a little bit more resonating, a little bit more powerful, and that stuff can stick with you. And I feel that it has for me. And then I've also had some professional mentors who have helped me to explore the sort of world that I work in outside of these videos. Let's see. Have you ever gotten tingles from your own videos? The short answer is yes. And the way that I would sort of describe this is, I remember forever ago, Maria, Gentle Whispering, had talked about, type A and type B ASMR. And really, like, type A are the people who can just, like, make it happen. Like have an ASMR experience. And then most is this other side, type B, which is like someone else is doing something, maybe a personal attention or something that you're observant to, and then having an ASMR experience. I think, for myself, I exist in both realms. Like, if I'm in this relaxing place, like I am right now, I'm trying to, anyway, turn on a more relaxing voice. I've got the headphones in so I can assess where we're at. I can, yep, like, I can have the ASMR tingle experience. So that's the second one during the course of this video. What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning, even on tough days? I'm a big believer in the phrase, make a good day. And I don't necessarily mean like make the day good, although that can certainly be part of it. What I mean is to be observant to the things that were good about the day. Or as human beings, our minds, thoughts, feelings, we gravitate towards negative. And I think it's because negative is powerful. And negative also is to say, that's not an experience that I want to have again, right? So, this idea of trying to enforce or encourage a sort of positive mindset is something that I find to be recharging and rewarding in and of itself. I've got lots of questions, so I might try to pick up the pace here a little bit. Does loneliness help you overcome difficulties? Come to some kind of answer to a question that interests you, or do you still feel more comfortable being around people? I'd say it has a lot to do with balance. I've already talked about how much I enjoy nature and being out there, and oftentimes that is a solo experience. But it can't only and always be that, at least not for me. I do know that having some sort of social component in my life is important. But I do think that loneliness offers a time to reflect and think in a deeper, more profound kind of way than just like the average thoughts that we might have day to day. How do you stay positive and think positively in some bad situations? So maybe this goes back to my weakness thing. I am definitely an optimist. I certainly have faith that despite certain situations, regardless of how dire, that things will ultimately somehow coalesce into some kind of good. It's not really like a predetermined thing by any means. I think it's just like a strongly held belief that things will just, they will rule out. And whether that is by my own direct actions at times, or even sometimes staying neutral and letting something take its course. Like I do think that something will come of it. Something good, specifically. Besides ASMR, do you have any other activity work in your specialty or outside your specialty? Do you prefer making videos or conducting your professional activities? So, as I've already said, I am a therapist, and so that is my work. And I certainly like to think that I do it well. You'd have to ask the people that I work with, but I won't tell you. I'll tell you though. Yeah, I like both. I like both, and and maybe that's part of like why not having my face on camera for the time being is that both are separate, and they each have their place. So, is there anything about yourself that you find interesting that many people may not know about you? Is there anything interesting about yourself that you find interesting that many people may not know about you? It's almost like the fun fact in a circle kind of question. Like, what would you want to share? I might just circle back around to that one. I'll let that one stew for a moment. Nothing's immediately coming to me. When you go to a barbecue or cookout, what is the first thing that you go for at the grill? I think if someone's making like a summer salad, I think that's really good. Tomatoes, cucumbers, corn, things like that. It's probably a really boring answer. Probably also say if someone's like grilling chicken, I'd say that's another one for me. What's your favorite unintentional ASMR trigger? I'd probably say, I remember being younger and going to eye doctors. Not that I needed glasses or anything, but I think it was just one of those like, oh, you do your ear test, you do your eye test, and so doing the eye test and the whole Snell chart thing, I found that to be a pretty triggering thing. I always enjoyed those experiences. I'm going to go back to the something interesting about myself. In this nature of being an active outdoors person, it is something that kind of jointly with my wife that we're working on is to visit every national park, at least in the United States. That's an endeavor that we're on, chipping away little bits at a time. The next question: do you realize that you help people sleep and relax? Do you feel proud of yourself for this? I think it has certainly. Certainly dawned on me that people sleep and relax, but that is only because I know, based on the comments and feedback that I receive from you, my lovely listeners. I think if it was me talking into some sort of YouTube void, it would be a very different experience. But to know that people are relaxed or that they are return listeners makes me really happy. The next question. what is your opinion on pineapples on pizza? So, I know that I mentioned already that I spent some time living in New York, and I will say that I think I'm a little bit biased in that it is not necessarily a go-to ingredient. That said, I have had it. Um, it's not my favorite, but to each their own. Um, I think I'm not really a pineapple person to begin with, so just to incorporate it onto something that, even as a plain slice, I already find pretty darn delicious. Seems like added steps. Does your wife or family know about the channel? If so, how do they react to it? So, I did say that my wife is already in the know. She's certainly supportive. I will say that. She is not an ASMR listener herself, and that is okay. But it is funny to say, like, I'm gonna go record. It's like, have fun, like, have a good session. And knowing that it's pretty high likelihood that she'll never, listen, and I don't expect her to either. ASMR's, it's a welcoming community, but then again, not everyone is keen to it, and that's fine. The next question is, do you have any other social media accounts? If not, are you planning to? This is behind the scenes of your channel, hikes, hunts. So this is actually pretty new. And the answer is yes. It was actually started, the idea started starring from a comment that I received on one of my very early videos, and talked about, what other links I might have. And so I do now currently have a Instagram link attached. So you can go to my profile, you can find that, and I would love to connect on that platform as well. I don't know how ASMR it'll be, only in the sense of like recording charts and things like that. I think I'm still in long form mode. But I think that I could probably see myself, posting pictures and things like that of places that I'm at, or maybe animals that I come across, things like that. The next question: are you a sociable person? I certainly like to think that I am, despite all of my nature talk and solitude and things like that. I do very much enjoy the company of other people. So, yeah. Let's see. I think we're getting down to the wire here. How old are you? Is the question. I am 32. So there's that. Let me add, I am 32 and I am loving it. I think this is the last question of this part 1 of 2. Question is, what is your favorite part of each day? Sunrises and sunsets are definitely up there. And where we live, we actually get the, rising and setting pretty accessibly, and so, You wake up early enough, you catch the sunrise, you stay up, and you can watch the sunset. And that's a really cool opportunity, just to be able to have both. In like relatively clear view. So yeah. So I think that about wraps up the questions of part one. Part two will be out shortly after. I hope not to take too long in between. But much like in my talk earlier about a tagline, I hope each of you, my lovely listeners, find your quiet. And until we get